not in and of themselves indicative of psychopathology. It is recognized that paranormal experiences may be concomitants of certain psychopathological states, or that certain paranormal experiences may trigger psychopathological responses or dysfunctional responses in some participants. Parapsychology rejects psychiatric diagnosis categories which are based solely upon subjective paranormal experiences, such as hearing voices. Parapsychology asserts that paranormal type experiences are often a source of paranormal transformation, personal transformation or healings into the individual, and are, as such, are potentially valuable aspects of the human experience. These experiences are potentially transformative and beneficial, whether or not they correspond to events in the realm of mundane sensory experience. Parapsychologists have a duty to assist their clients in the analysis and integration of paranormal experiences as an adjunct to personal growth in an individual. I'll read one more. That was the third one. Now, parapsychology asserts that consciousness itself is fundamentally paranormal, i.e. unexplainable by contemporary scientific models, and further asserts that within each individual is a stratum or layer of the psyche which is transpersonal, which means extending beyond the self, non-local and non-temporal. In other words, not bound by conventional concepts of space and time. The transpersonal consciousness incorporates other individuals, living and deceased, as well as objects and or locations which are meaningful to the individual. This transpersonal stratum of consciousness is the source of genuine paranormal experiences, whether experienced consciously or subliminally. And they go on with like 8 more principles. I'm not going to read the whole thing here. It's on, they have a web page, the American Institute of Parapsychology, which I don't know anything about, but the idea that when someone comes to me for counseling, and since I've been involved with Northern Wisconsin Paranormal Society since 2013, and even before, I've had some clients come and said that there were certain things that happened in their life that it was hard to explain, or they mentioned that they saw a spirit or a ghost, or heard some things, or seen some things that people that are, I call them flatliners, or people that aren't thinking multidimensionally, can come up with diagnoses that don't make any sense. They could be, have labeled with some type of psychosis or some type of delusional thinking. And sometimes people in my field don't really understand that they also have to look at other possibilities besides what's in the DSM-5 or DSM-4 diagnostic manual that we use to make diagnosis. So my perception of how to look at a client that has that has been expanded, and I'm grateful that I finally started thinking about that. There's a number of cases sometimes that people have gifts and they say they see spirits, and you have to take the client from where they're at. And so acknowledging that that's a possibility, and believing the client is the most healing thing someone can do for someone else. validate what they see, validate what their thoughts are, and start from that place. And that's something that I hope other people in my field are going to start being more open with, and understanding that there's things beyond their ability to understand that are a possibility. So I thought I would bring that up for discussion. Thank you.
Who would like to go first?
Well, I like the idea that there actually is the possibility of psychologists respecting and validating experiencers of psi phenomenon. I know that a great many that I know personally already do that. So it just sounds like it's been something that's been way too far back. It's taken too long to get there. And I know I spent a great deal of time this week researching about how parapsychology is considered a pseudoscience. And I'm glad that you brought this article up, because it kind of validated some of the other things I had read. I thought it was a great article.
Well, the definition of pseudoscience basically means that they can't replicate things in a laboratory setting.
Exactly. And it's actually rather mocked as well.
Right. And actually all psychology is pseudoscience in that sense. I mean, right. In my view, and I have a psychology degree, but it's what I call an interpretive science that is built on any of a variety of measurable characteristics, traits, or behaviors. And you have cults of psychologists, but that's not really what our focus is. What I want to say is, Tom, I think it's very admirable what you're doing. I think, and I agree with Kat, raising the field of psychology's ethical standard. In other words, even if a person thinks they've seen a UFO or a Bigfoot or a whatever, they need to be treated with respect and dignity like any patient seeking medical help or therapeutic benefit, in my opinion. Why we even need to have this discussion is beyond me. But we know that because of the CIA program to deny, discredit, and ridicule anyone who says they think they've seen something unusual, something paranormal, a ghost, a spirit, a demon, is categorized as probably crazy, subject to further testing, and that further testing will show, yeah, you're crazy, with things like ODD, which we talked about the last show, being classified as mental illness now. Talking about that reference that Tom said they do diagnoses by. I applaud all of the uplifting. It's great light work. Thank you.
Yeah. The Parapsychology Institute was founded in 1957. Now, but colleges and universities have actually been studying PSI, which was coined in the 30s by Rhine. Everyone's heard of the Rhine Institute, where you can get parapsychology training today, along with I believe the McCormick Institute and the Edgar Cayce Institute, and there are other ones out there. And I know Notre Dame for many years did research into different phenomena. So even though they call it a pseudoscience and they're knocking on it, in essence, it is legitimate science, and at least I have total respect for it, absolute respect for it, as I do any other field, that requires education. It's interesting. Parapsychology actually has two definitions. One is a psychologist who also researches the paranormal avidly, we'll say. And, of course, so technically, Gene, you would fall, if you wanted to call yourself a parapsychologist, you could. And actually,
I already am, Kevin, ever since you told me that.
Right. And Tom could too, because he's got a degree in psychology. I call him our parapsychotherapist. But and actually the other definition is a scientist who studies paranormal phenomenon. Now, as of last year, ufology is no longer a pseudoscience; it is a science, academically. And so, I meaning that there are colleges in the world, a couple, not many, but that are teaching UFO and offering courses and even degrees regarding that. So that's amazing. And again, a psychologist, that is academic training. The fact that they want to focus on things like the unknown and unexplained, like Gene says, there's so much out there that's unknown. It's an observant, it's like sociology, like it's what would you say, relative? I don't know. I'm babbling on and on.
What we really seem to be getting down to is mainstream view versus alternative view.
Right.
That seems to me. And the work that all of us in this group are doing is fringe, according to the mainstream. It doesn't seem at all fringe to us who are within the community. We think of ourselves as a community. We know each other.
I will say, but first of all, the good thing is that until very recently, the taboo has been kind of lifted off of the unknown and unexplained. So for the last 20 years, we could talk about it much more freely than we ever could. Now, of course, we're starting to see the mortal powers that be slowly putting that lid back on the pot, because it's to them it's gone too far. They've lost control of how people perceive the narrative, and so they need to start censoring things again. And of course, the conspiracies get it the worst, but pretty much anything that's considered unknown and unexplained is still that way for a reason. You know what I'm saying? It's by design. So, yeah. Let's see. What does anyone else have anything to add to that? No. Why don't
I'm
we,
good. I think it was covered well.
Yeah, it was covered well. I mean, everybody made points that I would have made, and I agree with everybody else. And it was a wonderful article.
I just wanted to throw in this thought I had that Gene and I are a pair of psychotherapists. That's a joke.
A para psychologist. We're a para psychologist. Am I right?
Indeed.
All right, everybody.
To paraphrase Tom. Sorry.
All right, everybody. And with that, it is time for our next commercial break. You are listening to Paraversal Universe. We will be right back with our panel after these commercials.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.